LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
But I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
They didn't actually answer the question.
You know when someone, you're like, hey, can you scratch my back? I really
Right.
have an itch. And they come in with soft hands and you're like, more, please, more, you're making it worse. You know what I mean?
It does make it worse.
Yeah.
Because then you're confused about what you initially emailed, especially if it's come from your brain.
Yeah. This is part 1 of a 2-part episode on AI, which if you're thinking, weird topic for Alex and Meredith to dive into, yes, correct. And this is by no means a comprehensive history or review of all practical use cases, but rather a reflection on the world of AI and how it's used in creative, business, and interpersonal spaces. This episode idea was inspired by an experience we had recently with a creative team we'd hired to do some marketing and branding work for us, and the fallout that occurred when their use of AI came to light. This brings into question the ethics of AI use and the issue of disclosure. With it being such a new technology, the level of experience that people have with it is all over the map. Some people operate with a lot of knowledge, and others maybe even shy away from the technology altogether. In all cases, the risk of fracturing trust is very real if there's not enough transparency in how and when a tool like AI is used, especially in work that involves an element of relationship building and any amount of creativity. This is a 2-part episode because we realize there's just so much to cover on this topic. In part 1, what you're about to listen to, we'll share a bit of our history and perspective on AI and how we got into a situation that resulted in us terminating a working relationship with a creative agency. I want to ask you, because we're going to talk about AI today, what your first recollection of AI is in like recent history.
Well, I don't know how long ago it was. I just remember AI being something that was happening, and I felt, and this is going to be no surprise, extremely resistant to it.
I remember not even, in addition to the level of resistance, I remember talking about it, and you actually got kind of mad that I was talking about it. You were like, I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah.
I remember this. I don't remember in what the exact context was, but I do remember there was resistance, and then there was like another layer of the resistance.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, I think part of it is my general struggle with technology, and it's just one more, essentially a piece of technology that now I need to learn or figure out or understand. And then I think whatever somebody doesn't understand, there's going to be a healthy amount of fear that comes with it, because when you don't understand something, you make assumptions, and typically negative ones, how it's going to harm your job or threaten your well-being or whatever.
Yeah.
That, I guess the unknown is scary for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more that.
Do you have a sense that it is impacting your job, or like this, maybe the coaching industry, or what we do more broadly?
I'm not sure. I think about that, and I think in some ways, yes, because I look at specifically run coaching, and there are so many AI apps that program running, and I'm like, but why? I would never use an AI app for running.
Yeah.
Because I want the person. I want to be able to talk to my coach. I want to be able to say to my coach, I'm missing my run. Like, can you make me feel better about it? And not that, but
yeah.
Can you can you provide some assurance that I'm going to be okay? What do you how would you approach this? The mindset part of it.
Right.
I like that personal touch. If the coach is using AI for their programming to a degree to help inform them, to help them learn, to help them expand their knowledge base, fine. But I need that person. And I want programming to come from a person.
Right.
And I want to be able to have contact with that person.
Yeah. And
I
have
don't
that person like have enough understanding. So and we'll talk about this later, but there's this inflection point with AI use where it might be something that a coach uses, but if they use it to a degree that they don't develop an understanding of their athlete or their client, then that communication piece is lost, even though the connection is there.
Yeah. Like I picked a coach when I hired a new run coach. We talked about this last week. That is old school. Like I guarantee you she's not using AI. And I like that. She has 20 years of coaching experience. I can use ChatGPT to get validation for how I feel with challenging conversations with a client or an interpersonal situation. But there's part of me in my brain that's like, but it's just AI. It might expand a perspective, but it's still just AI. It's not the same as speaking to my therapist. So with that, I think that yes, AI can be taking away parts of like my work or my opportunity. But in the same vein, I still think that there are a ton of people who value the humanism.
Yeah.
So yes and no.
Yes. And I think that the app that you're talking about is called Runna. And it's the AI driven running app that all the major races partnered with as a sponsor. And it's not to say like running is not the only area in which AI apps are being used. Cycling, strength training, they're everywhere.
CrossFit.
But AI, Runna is such an interesting case study because it came up so quickly. It's just coming up now. I don't know the economics on that specifically and like the investment structure, but they threw so much money into it and they signed all of these like elite runners to be to endorse it, which is, as someone who is in the athletic space, there's an irony to that because good and well that elite runner is not using an AI app.
100%. They would never use an AI app.
Yeah, but they are promoting one. And then the way that app was built or whatever it learned on was just like piling volume on people. And so all of these injuries started happening to people who were using it to prep for major like marathons and half marathons or trail, whatever. And so there's all this pushback. And now the app developers or whatever's driving this are kind of easing back. But I mean like a flood of injuries. And then they dumped a lot of their pro runners. So there's like levels of ethical issue there, especially with something that is as repetitive as running. But I think that with AI, like many things, is going to it is a bit of a pendulum. And so whenever something's kind of new and there's a lot of interest in it, the way that people engage with it in practice and even intellectually sort of swings hard to one side. So there's like an over engagement with it and you kind of figure it out. Like everybody's really curious about it. And then I think you're right. I think that what is going to be lost there is that felt sense of like human connection. And so, having someone, deliver programming over email in writing and like that's very not AI. It's very old school. There's obviously the far other side of it. So I think most likely there'll be some sort of a resettling kind of in the middle. And that's where people will be probably drawn to that connection with a human coach, with someone who knows them so that they feel actually like known. And I think during that time, coaches may learn how best to use that tool for them. And that may mean that they don't use it at all. And that's fine. And then of course there will be people that are very drawn to technology, probably as a way to avoid human connection. And so they will lean into the AI tools. But I think most of us, what makes us human is that desire to connect with other people. And people are already feeling that loss.
Yeah. I think that this is true in other cases as well, including business relationships, therapeutic relationships. That's a big one. Um, and and even like service-based relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like I I don't know exactly what's happening in the law world or in the science world, but human connection and that the nuance that's required with case law and cases and an
Yeah.
application, and then also like there's a level of reassurance that happens in the law field and in the business and marketing field.
Yeah.
And we just experienced that. And I think you're right. Like something swings one way and then you're like, hold up. I'm starting to see all of the things that I didn't initially see.
Yeah.
Kind of like you enter into a new relationship and you don't see all you see are these great qualities of this person that you just met. And there's this like infatuation of all the great things that they can add to your life. And then a few months in, you're like, wait a sec. Wait, hold up.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that before, but that's a problem. That's a red flag. And that's kind of where I think, and I could be totally out to lunch, but I think that's kind of where people in general are starting to handle AI. There's these red flags that are popping up that now need to be addressed.
Yeah. And if you've interacted with an AI platform or chatbot, like ChatGPT, Claude, probably the two most popular ones, they are like dangerously sycophantic. Like
Wait, can you say what that word means?
like they bias themselves towards the user.
Yes.
So there's going to be an inherent amount of self-validation that occurs when you use an AI tool like that. You actually have to build them specifically to not do that. You have to almost instruct AI tools to not be so biased. And people are using them. I mean, the kind of the worst case scenarios when people use these things as like a therapeutic agent, because it's causing like clinical level psychosis and suicidal ideation, and it's amplifying mental health conditions. I mean, there are multiple lawsuits against OpenAI for this exact thing. So that aside, like there has to be some understanding of the bias that you're exposing yourself to. And if you're looking to develop in any way, on a personal level, on an academic level, on an athletic level, I think that they're self-limiting. Like what if you were using one as a coach and you're like, well, I don't really like this training, or you're saying something and it's like, that's okay. You don't have to do it.
It's very validating.
Yeah.
Which I've mentioned this in this podcast about how chat can really help. And it does, because sometimes that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
But you also need that part or that person in your life to say, I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But let's like really think this through here. Am I here to listen or am I here to help? And ChatGPT kind of can do that, but it's also just a robot.
Yeah.
I saw online on Instagram, it was a while back, so I'm paraphrasing, but it basically said there are somewhere in the world, ChatGPT is telling the stupidest person that they're the smartest person.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I listened to this podcast way back. It was like a daily, I think. And it's telling the story of this guy who was interacting with, and this is just like a normal guy, like, middle of Ohio kind of a dude. And he's interacting with an AI bot that basically convinces him that he's created this new mathematic equation that, he's like a genius, and that he should reach out to organizations and to NASA. And he starts doing that because he thinks that he's solved some major problem in astrophysics with this equation, and that it's going to be profitable, or it's something that would benefit society. And eventually someone's like, dude, this is nothing. And that's when he sort of had imagine this is the relationship that you've built with an AI tool over the course of, I don't know, 6 months to a year, and you find out that none of it is valid. And then just like what would that do to you psychologically? And they've also had cases and accounts where people build actual like sub-romantic relationships with AI bots. And most chat bots are limited in their memory, so they can only recall a certain amount of words, or maybe they refresh on a time frame. And so you build this relationship with this AI bot that then one day you go in there to chat with your AI romantic interest, and it doesn't remember you. Can you imagine what that would feel like?
It'd be like the movie 50 First Dates.
Yeah, but like all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Not after one date, after 6 months of them.
That would be brutal. And humans can be so I want to say sensitive, but that's a word for it.
Yeah.
I also saw, and this one made me very happy, that again, it was just a meme on Instagram, but it was I would trust Joe Blow on Reddit, on any Reddit thread over any chat GPT.
Yeah.
And that kind of, it validated me as someone who's resistant to AI to a degree.
Yeah.
But thinking about how I've used chat GPT in the past, I don't recall ever typing something in and saying, what do you think of this? Or can you help me make sense of this? Or I just put something in and it responds.
Yeah.
Never has it said, this doesn't make sense. Or this is stupid, or something that maybe another, and not in that way, but to say, wait a sec, I'm not following, or this thinking doesn't make sense, or you
might want to think about this.
Right. It's like, I understand how this would make you feel. It totally makes sense. It's very validating. Maybe I should like do some experiments in it, just to say something totally bogus and see what it says.
Yeah.
Or I am just smart and I always make sense.
It could be both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, both can be true. Yeah. And AI is not a new thing. It's kind of funny because there's been this, think back just into pop culture and media over the last, 30 years. There's been this like, oh, the robots are coming kind of, undercurrent. Like there's enough knowledge with computers, and there has been this knowledge really since the 1950s of maybe not what they're capable of now, but what they might be capable of in the future. And so like the history of AI truly goes back to like the mid 1950s when the term was coined. Like artificial intelligence was a term that was derived 70 years ago. And then there's, kind of enthusiasm for the potential, but not the technology to do it. I mean, think about, the early computers. There was the computer that sent, shuttles to the moon was a fraction as powerful as a cell phone, which is crazy to think about. But that's where we were at. And then machine learning is sort of where generative AI began, and that was in the 2000s to 2010s. And then, here we are in 2026 with real, we can use them kind of models. But that's been it's not like this happened overnight. But it's when I think about, early AI or people, their fears, I always think about like iRobot. You ever see that movie, Will Smith movie?
I don't think I watched that movie. Again, it goes back to my fear of robots and computers.
Well, that's like, I think when people think about the, AI and the robots are coming, and they've had, there's been a few companies that have launched conceptually these sort of physical AI assistants. But they're bogus. Like they're just sort of like crowdfunding, and, there's a potential there, but you have something that literally looks like an iRobot robot in real life that exists, which is nuts.
They now have robots that look like humans.
Yeah.
They don't even look like robots.
Where did you see this?
On Instagram.
Oh, okay. Are you sure it wasn't an AI video of a robot that looks like a human?
It totally could have
been. I feel like it probably was that.
Okay,
Yeah.
wait. I also listened to a podcast, and apparently there is an AI actor that has like an agent.
Yeah. There's an AI social media platform that's just for AI bots and just for AIs. And they interact and they talk shit about humans, and they were like talking about establishing their own language so that humans couldn't understand what they were saying.
Okay, I feel so validated about my fear now.
Yeah. I mean, there are some constraints around that. And
Is this like Pluribus?
well, I think that Pluribus, the show, is an allegory for AI. That's
I
my
agree
theory.
with that.
Mhm.
That's a good theory.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that show, we won't spoil it.
Mhm.
Watch it. It's good.
But I think that show's just a metaphor for where we're
Mhm.
at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think where we're at is really, even in the last 6 months, the AI developments that have occurred, um, vibe coding. Do you know what vibe coding is?
Obviously, but maybe explain it to the viewers.
Yeah, the listeners.
Or
Vibe
yeah.
coding. I mean, yeah, vibe coding really, it is the first time like people with no coding background can start to code for software and for websites and things like that. You can use AI tools to code in any language now. And I've used this for our website because it's a heck of a lot easier. If there's just needs to be a little change, like for example, I'll tell you how I've used this. On Squarespace, you can do custom like CSS like code injection across your site on specific pages. And because we use a custom font and like a few other things, I had added some menu items, but there was like our main menu text. And then if the menu was associated with a drop down menu, like a sub menu, they weren't aligning. There was like the sub menu button, like the text was sitting maybe like 30 pixels higher. And so that just makes me bananas. Like it's not a huge deal, but I couldn't stand to look at it. So I consulted a coding bot and basically describe the issue, plug in the code that's on our site, and then it's like, okay, here's what I would recommend doing. Like go to this line of code and inject like this code and then report back. And so literally like back and forth with this AI bot that's like, okay, well that changed this, but it didn't quite get there. And it's like, okay, let's delete that and try something else. And that's super basic stuff, but it allowed me to fix a problem on our website that I wouldn't have been able to fix a year ago. I would have had to contact our web developer who would have been fine using it or fixing it for us. But vibe coding, it allows people to build entire websites on their own or tools, apps, things like that. And even when that was sort of becoming a thing about a year ago, there was still like you kind of had to know a little about coding really to implement it because it would be buggy. If you're writing Python scripts, they wouldn't necessarily run to completion, and then debugging Python is a whole thing. And if you don't know how to do that, you're just going to make a big mess with code, and you're going to sort of tie yourself in a knot, and then you're going to have this unusable thing that you don't know how to fix, and the AI bot doesn't know how to fix it either. In the last 6 months, agentic coding has gotten really, really good. And so what that means is like the bots themselves do a lot more of the legwork. So it doesn't really require that much intervention from a human. So then the knowledge required to interact with these tools and these bots is so much lower that you can get a website or something basically fully functioning to like 90% without really needing to know anything at all, which is crazy.
Yeah. And if you're listening, you listeners out there, and you have no idea what Meredith just said, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do pull up the code and I'm like, okay, first of all, how did you even get to that page?
Yeah.
Then secondly, what?
Yeah. I know a little bit about like HTML coding because I had a MySpace way back and I wanted it to look a certain way in order to look. Did you ever have a MySpace page?
No.
Okay. Well, MySpace was unique because you could use HTML coding. You could change the background and make it look custom, but you had to know how to do HTML coding in order for that to work. So that's where like my coding knowledge was. And then in my work as an engineer, I learned on like SCADA systems and things like that. But you don't see industrial coding like you don't see finesse systems. Like you don't the coding that I was doing there is in a capsule relevant only to industrial processes.
Right.
but I understand the philosophy behind it. But when you're looking at something that's like, JavaScript or Python, I don't know that
Yeah.
system. I don't know how to do it.
I'm only familiar with level 1 chat GPT.
Right.
I don't, and we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
There are levels to this. Clearly,
Yeah.
there are certain chats, chat AIs or whatever. And I think most of us are familiar with Chat GPT.
Yeah.
The one where you just have something going on, or you have a basic question that you don't want to type into Google because it comes out a little bit more synthesized.
Yeah.
Or you have an interpersonal relationship or a thought that you're shameful about, so you share it with chat. But there's a whole other world out there that you're familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
that has been quite helpful to certain aspects of our job, like some elements of coding, our website, and then even learning about programming. Or we don't typically use it for writing. And
I think I've ever used it for
let's
writing.
first talk about how ChatGPT, my belief is as ChatGPT grows,
Yeah.
it is going to take away all problem solving capabilities. And well, maybe this is the time where we inject our little story.
Yeah. So I guess before we get negative with AI, I
Right.
think AI has a lot of potential, and it is showing this potential in that it enhances the work of certain industries, like creatives, certainly coders. Like I think about our web development company specifically, who's it's Boldly Fine and run by this guy Nick, who's great, and before it would take a long time to really implement anything because coding is very labor intensive. You have to manually check things. You have to build like a dummy virtual test environment, which we still have, but it's make a change, test it, make a change, test it, make a change, test it. And within that, you have to bring a lot of people in as well. So now you're not only paying the web developer, you're paying his subcontractors, and there's pros and cons to that. But the thing that it has done for our relationship with him is that things get turned around way quicker and they cost us less money because his hourly rate hasn't changed, but his rate of work has greatly increased.
Yeah. Asterisk that / remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to what we're going to say in
Yeah.
a few minutes.
And he's still so knowledgeable. Like he's one of the smartest people and understands how AI fits into his systems and could like potentially fit ethically into ours or other systems, And so I think that it has the ability to greatly enhance learning and output and, offload some mental resources that are associated with kind of lower level work, busy work for a person or an organization.
Yeah, I think to reiterate, AI can help you do your work better and faster, but it doesn't replace the work or the job. You're still doing a lot of work, and there's still a lot of legwork with the AI tool to get it to a point where it can help you do it. Like if there's still a lot of work that Nick needs to do to have a really good understanding of what we want and what we want our app to look like and how we want it to function.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has to have an understanding of how he teaches his AI to then help him help us.
Yeah. Like what's the knowledge base that it's drawing from.
Right.
And there's some really good ones out there that exist for coders. And so you can trust that the knowledge base is solid and it's built on something robust. The more basic generative AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, your OpenAI chatbot that's on your phone, the risk with using those, I think, from a structural standpoint and a content standpoint, is there's an extremely high rate of hallucinations, and so that really it simply just means like it's going to speak and produce something with a lot of confidence that's just wrong, just factually inaccurate, or doesn't align with like everything else that's come before it. And it's because there's limitations in how much data that those can handle. And also it's drawing from such a large knowledge base, while operating with a very limited number of words that it can use. Like, of course it's going to do that. It would be impossible for a system not to do that. And so I don't know if you want to jump into our story, or I can talk about like different AI models and what we use. Like, what do you think is the best path here?
I want to talk about our story, and then the problem solving pattern that's problem solving, dying, slow death,
Yeah.
and critical thinking. And then let's talk about the different AI models and how you use them.
Okay. Hit me.
All right. Our story.
Do it.
We hire a marketing agency based on who we know that they've worked with in the past. And we interview them and we talk to them, and they're great. They really seem to understand what we're looking for. We feel confident in them helping us. In our mind, this is going to be somewhat of an 8 to 12 month commitment and quite an investment for us. And we've never really had to invest a lot of money into our business. We've just invested a lot of labor and time, and that's helped us grow. But we're at a point where we want some new perspectives and new eyes. And so we hire outside help. We're super excited about this. We're super excited of getting fresh ideas. And over the course of the winter.
Let's talk about the structure of the work first.
Right. Good idea.
So it's kind of phased out, which is, we went in kind of very like, we need a new website. That was a very like front of mind kind of thing. But really the more impactful work, and I do agree with this, is like messaging and strategy and just making everything a bit more cohesive and evolving what we do. Because it's been since really 2018 since we've evolved any part of what we do from a messaging and a deliverable standpoint. So yes, great. Feeling very well understood, makes sense what we're doing. We're going to do all this strategy work and then move into contract marketing work where they help us with marketing funnels through emails, like set up some automations and kind of just like take the strategy work that they do. Because while we do a lot of media marketing and, organic relationship building, that doesn't always convert to business. In fact, like it doesn't convert to business. It converts to more people watching our videos, which is great. Love that. But from a stable income standpoint, we're not hedging Instagram content well enough right now.
Mm-hmm.
So getting some more evergreen systems in place, emails, like making sure people know what we do and what we offer.
And that it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
Good entry points.
Right. So, that's kind of the core. And then from that grows the marketing across platforms, the funnels, the automations, things like that. And then, yes, we will bring in everything on one website and kind of pretty things up and make it make sense. And, it has like a permanent home. So the strategy work is first. That's a couple of months. And then we get into basically 6 to 12 months of extended contract marketing work while we develop a new website and sort of evolve some of our platforms and systems. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
If that sounds like a lot of, you're not really sure what that actually is going to look like, that's exactly kind of how we felt. It was, this sounds really good. We're excited for you to do this work for us so that we can implement it and it can be concrete and material and it will return on investment and help us grow and help more people. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't really know what this means. And that's fine because you're hiring somebody to do that. It's like someone saying, we're going to win. We're going to do our best to argue this case for you and hopefully get this amount of money so that you can recoup damages in a law thing. But you don't really know how they're going to do it. The lawyer's going to go off. They're going to get their students to do all this research, to organize case law, to build an argument, and then they present it and whatever. All of this work is done behind the scenes. And once in a while, we would have these meetings where they would provide updates. And at one point, I was like, that was a lot of AI. It was our messaging website or our messaging meeting. And they basically delivered all of these examples of new messaging that they had created for us.
Little like sort of hooky taglines, social media one-liners, that kind of thing.
Yeah, how to explain what tactic does. We might be able to use them for Instagram or on our website or whatever.
Which, like, importantly, I want to pause there for a second. All AI bots know who Tactic is. Like if you were to ask ChatGPT about Tactic, it's going to come up with a lot of material about us.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's important to insert here.
Yeah, I mean, we have put so much out into the internet, into the ether. If we're on Reddit, like there's a lot of stuff out there on us.
Yeah.
We've been around for a while, and I'm like, this is like definitely AI, and I think I was able to identify it very early on because I know I'm familiar with level 1 AI. I'm familiar with trying to articulate a post and typing in, I want to do a post on this, but I'm not really sure how to start it. I need a hooky tagline. And I swear, every time I've tried to use AI to create a post, I'm disappointed with what it comes up with. It's so generic and superficial and not hooky. It has no sense of humor. So what I end up doing is having to use my own brain, which I like. I like problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
It rarely ever provides what I want it to. And what it's going to create for you is a very generic type post, which you can see on Instagram all of the time.
Yeah.
And so because I'm familiar with that, I was reading these taglines and I'm like, this is AI. And there's other things that I was noticing, like the long dash. There's like certain grammar things that I've recognized that AI uses. A lot of conjunctions, which I don't typically use in my typing. The long dash sentence structure is very obvious. I'm like a grammar person. So this stuff jumps out at me.
Yeah. And it's trained on, importantly, it's most AI, generative AI systems are trained on formal writing. And that's where the long dash comes in. Because that is a very formal writing. So are semicolons, so are conjunctions.
But you don't typically see it in formal writing anymore.
Yeah. The way that we write has changed.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember saying to you, that was a lot of AI. And it wasn't bad stuff. It was usable. So you kind of were like, yeah, a lot of people are using AI right now. They're using it to enhance their work. I'm not concerned. And I was like, all right, like this is kind of your jam. So I'm like going with it. And I do understand that AI is being used. And then it just gets worse and worse. And we're paying so much money and investing so much time and waiting for this to like make our business better in the end. And then I'm going to hand it off to you now. Yeah.
And I think part of my like willingness to accept this was that you kind of see it unfolding, but I know like we have a retainer coming up with them. Like, I don't understand a lot of what they're delivering to us in these documents right now. I like, some of it was definitely AI. Like there's
the documents were so long.
They're like 50 page, just full of like, I don't know, nothing.
Again, like ChatGPT, when you read what it says, it's a lot of words, but nothing that really hits.
And this is apparently a huge issue in industries right now. When you, especially like engineering industries where, so much of the communication is solving immediate problems. Like I can think back to how rapidly we had to solve problems through email communication in my engineering job. And people are apparently using ChatGPT and these generative AI things to send messages, but they're so long. And so the ask is like, can you read this and get back to me with your thoughts? And people are like fed up. They're like, I do not want to look at a wall of AI slop and make it my responsibility to understand what it is that you are even trying to convey here. And so companies are kind of having to scramble and come up with best practices and ways to use these tools because it's costing people time. It's
disrespectful, in my opinion.
It is. It's lazy. It puts the onus on someone else. And, fundamentally, you send a short email, I expect a short email back.
Right.
Unless it's something where I'm asking for a lot more detail, in which case, by all means, send the detail.
And if you need a robot to help you understand what's coming in and then deliver something that makes any sense, then you don't know what you're doing. Right. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
The way that I see ChatGPT, especially in a professional environment, and the way that we've experienced it, is if you really want someone to give you an apology, and then they kind of just say a lot of stuff, but you never really feel like you got the apology that you wanted.
Yeah.
That's how I feel with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's like it says so much and you're like, I feel like I should feel better, but I don't.
You're like left with like cognitive and intellectual blue balls. Like you didn't quite get there. You know what I
Right.
mean? You didn't finish.
They spoke to it, but like
You're like,
they didn't actually answer the question.
you know, when someone you like you're like, hey, can you scratch my back? I really
Right.
have an itch. And they come in with soft hands and you're like, more, please, more. You're making it worse. You know what I mean?
It does make it worse.
Yeah.
Because then you're confused about what you initially emailed, especially if it's come from your brain.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this happened. This exact thing happened.
Yeah. And
So low key, I'm thinking, okay, they're using ChatGPT, but whatever, we're gonna go with it. It's gonna be fine. We're kind of sunk cost here.
there's a like we're in it. So
Yeah.
let's just like make the best of it. And so the issue started to arise when we started to dabble in like, okay, here's the 6 to 12 month plan and the website's in that plan. And the costs are just going through the roof. And I know some of that is related to the fact that like I do want a Next.js website to be our permanent website. And I know that there's costs associated with that. And I know the cost because I've talked to our web developer who builds Next.js websites. Like our app is on Next.js. We've done the legwork.
If you don't know what that means, it doesn't matter.
It's just a fully custom website. Like
it's
if you
like
go to,
there's Shopify, there's what's our other one?
yeah, so there's drag and drop web builders, which Shopify, Squarespace, Wix,
Right.
Show It, even WordPress is kind of a complicated drag and drop. Anyone can go on those platforms and build a website by dragging and dropping elements and then putting in pictures and uploading videos and putting in copy. Next.js is a full custom, requires code. Everything about a Next.js website has to be defined. There's no template to operate within. The beauty of a Next.js website is it can be whatever you want. And it turns out you're not then constrained by the website's platform limitations. You're not married to a particular payment system. You don't lose anything.
You never outgrow it.
Yeah, it turns a website into an asset.
Yeah.
Truly.
And we've already built our app on it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to use that foundation
right.
to create our now like facing website.
Yeah.
Our store.
Yeah. But as soon as we started that, like the cost just went, and the costs are already high, quoted for just a custom like drag and drop website.
And if you're wondering, it's like 30,000 US.
Yeah.
We're talking here.
So now the cost is
okay,
looking more like 50,000 US for Next.js and that's like with the development being the lowest part of that, which is backwards because I mean, Nick was like, yeah, the development costs are high because it's hard, but that's my thing, not their thing. So It's like these costs are going up. There were inconsistencies like with what we were being told as far as future work goes, not only from cost, but also terms. There were inconsistencies between that and what I remembered from the contract and like the proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, maybe I'm just not remembering because like, you know, there's a lot going on. And then the kicker, like the nail in the coffin, the thing that just like it flipped my entire perspective on this was that I was asking for a specific answer to the question of merging our websites onto an interim website, like basically using our Squarespace website to host both companies while we build the Next.js website.
Okay, quick backup. We have 2 websites right now, which we're looking to combine. We have one for nutrition, our nutrition and lifestyle coaching, and then one for our fitness app website. And then we have the app that's connected to that website, sort of.
Yeah.
But essentially what you need to know if you don't know, we right now have 2 websites, which is confusing and clunky. So we want to combine everything under one umbrella. And that's part of this whole project.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So the nutrition website's a fully custom Shopify website. The fitness is a fully custom Squarespace website. So yeah, in bringing them together, my biggest question mark was around membership management because Shopify Squarespace has some limitations in their built-in membership system. And I know about this because I had to build Bike Club on it and I ended up going with a third-party system. And this is all really relevant because it is the Squarespace memberships that create the webhook that allows people to access the app. And so when you think about it, if Squarespace looks at all memberships the same, and if you create a membership, it's going to webhook to the app. Not everyone who has a membership should have access to the app. Like this is the inherent problem. And so part of their thing was like, we're going to do some tech research and have a solution for this. And so they were like, let's move forward with the retainer and we'll work this out. And my question was very simply like, I just need to know what solution you're proposing, because we've been down this road where we get really far into a digital project and realize that we're at a part of the maze that is a dead end. Like there's no way through. There's no solution.
It turns out that the people that we hired, even though they said they could figure it out, couldn't.
Right.
And then they held our website hostage. You guys, and it was really bad.
Yeah, may remember that story. So that is what happened to it. That is the impact of committing to work without understanding the scope and the roadmap. And so all I was asking was, I just need to understand what we're looking at here. So I know for sure that it's possible because I have my hesitations. I have some of my beliefs are that it may not be possible. And it was, that question, there was a question about the implementation of the wireframes, a couple of other sort of tech, but like my email was short. It was like question. There were like 5 questions. And then, and clearly written by me.
Very specific.
Mm-hmm. And what I got back was.
And okay, I want to preface this. We try to respond to emails and things within 24, 48 hours, but sometimes longer if it takes time to understand and make sure you're gathering all the information needed to answer the question properly.
Right.
Something that was happening with this group was the turnaround time on things.
Yeah, the pace at which you would get responses
was so fast.
Right.
And things would happen like the next day. So if the scope of the project would change in any way, the next proposal would come within 12 hours.
Yeah.
And the proposals were so general. It was like copy $8,000 for the website. And you're like, how the heck can copy cost $8,000 when we just paid you to do all this back end messaging work?
Like we have all the copy over here.
You just presented a 90-minute presentation about all this copy you've written for us.
Yeah.
/ ChatGPT probably wrote for us. Why aren't we just using that? Why? But again, like normally when you get proposals, at least in my experience with business and professional relationships, and with our coding guy, our website guy, it would be like copy this. That like, this is what all of this entails. This is why it's going to cost this much. Like, yeah. But these proposals were super general and they were turned around really fast.
Right.
And then there were inconsistencies.
Yes.
So things would change from the prior proposal that we didn't want to change.
Yeah.
It was weird. Anyway, I think that's important to note that the turnaround time with this stuff was really fast.
Yeah. And so the response that I got to a very, like I would say a set of relatively like technical questions came really quickly, and it was copy paste ChatGPT, and you know that because of the way that ChatGPT does its weird little validation thing. It's like, I understand your questions and your concern. You're not just thinking about a website. You're thinking about the integration of 2 systems into a long-term solution and how they might solve short-term and like long-term problems. It makes sense that you're concerned here, but what I see is you're hung up on the technical details when really we need to be focusing on strategic implementation or like bleh.
If I were to use ChatGPT and it gave me that and then it answered the questions, even if it could, I would at least delete those sentences.
Right. Rewrite it. So, but
like that alone is a waste of your time to read.
And I think my email with my questions was probably 250 words in length, and this response was probably 900 to 1,000, and didn't answer the questions, and did then say, I think we should move up. We should like get started on the CMO retainer, and we can dedicate the first part of your like first month to understanding the tech limitations, which like literally we had just explained to them. Like, this is what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to pay someone before I understand because this got us in so much trouble a couple years ago.
We're not paying you to figure it out.
I'm paying you because you have a solution.
Yes.
Which is like, to me, is a very basic concept.
And if you can't prove to me that you have a solution before you get going on this work, I don't want to hire you.
It's like so simple. That is the thing. So I have a personality trait where I will hold out hope for as long as I possibly can. I am an optimist until it's until it becomes clear that I shouldn't be. I am the human equivalent of Bruce the shark from Finding Nemo. Like, I'm friendly, I love you until you do something that makes me want to eat you. And that's sort of what happened. Like, my brain kind of broke when I read that. I was like, so it made me rethink every single thing that came before it. And then you just start seeing all of these things, right? Like, you look at everything in a different way, because if a human to human interaction, if an email with a client does not qualify as the type of work that you should spend your personal time and understanding responding to, if that's the type of work that you're willing to use copy paste chat GPT level 1 for, what the hell is everything else?
Especially when you're hiring someone for things like copy and design and messaging and emails.
Yeah. So this started me down a bit of a rabbit hole. Not that it took very long, but basically found all these issues in our the discrepancies in the contract that are really secondary to the AI problem.
You start looking at everything.
Yeah. And my concern is, well, number one, I think we agree on this. There's like sort of a knee jerk. You're like, okay, now I have to think about everything. And you kind of start to see, and I ran everything through an AI detector. There's this one that's actually really good. Most of them are garbage, but there's this
What's it called?
I think it's called Objectivity. Let me just double check that.
I mean, the thing about Meredith is like, I can do this. I can say, we're done here. I could easily just say that. I don't need to do any additional research. There's enough evidence for me to come to a conclusion. Where you're like, I need 102% understanding of all of this, of every interaction, of everything delivered, of how this has played out in other areas, of what the current environment is in chat GPT and AI use with marketing. Like, you will go and spend hours figuring this all out to make sense of it. Whereas I'm like, we're done.
Yeah.
So you're off doing that. And yeah, you're so now not only do you have to run all of this stuff through a chat detector or an AI detector. I keep using chat and AI.
Yeah.
An AI detector. Now you also have to do research to figure out which is the most reliable detector.
Right.
So this is the level of research that you're doing now to make sure that we are coming to the right conclusion, even though I was there a long time ago, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons. Like, I think we work together well for this reason, and we individually get ourselves in trouble, and as we go through the one that I used. There's Originality AI and Chat GPT 0. Originality AI, especially with their new update, is really, really good. So everything's flagging red, right? As if you needed to run it through there. But so, and I cross-checked this against like my writing and then my modified, like, okay, if I use my language model and I modified it a little bit, how does that look? And everything was appropriate. Like, it was all working and making sense the way that I thought it should be. But then the research, I was like, a lot of it is to make it make sense for me and like almost to make my feelings make sense. Like, why am I so upset by this? And, there is a real problem in the industry, just generally, but definitely in marketing, with a lack of transparency about AI use. And I think this is where, regardless of the industry, people are going to get themselves in trouble because when you don't know what you're paying for, I think that's like fundamentally it. Number one, people want to know what they're paying for and for who's doing the work. For me, it's a trust violation. It's disrespectful. When you could so easily say, these are our AI tools and this is how we use them. And this is how you will not see us use them. Like that level of disclosure is so important, and it provides guardrails for everybody, but most importantly for the company to stay within, because the way that the law applies to copyright with AI, and this, I went all the way back to our contract to figure out what are the IP stipulations and what's the copyright as written into the contract. And so as expected, what they're doing is they're signing over copyright to us when they write something for us. That's how that works. It's like a licensing thing, but anything that is written for us is ours at the end of the day. The problem is you can't copyright AI. You can't copyright something that's written by AI, number one. And then also because of the large knowledge base that it draws from, you are exposing yourself to infringement risk. Like you could be infringing on someone else's trademark copy without realizing it.
Because you don't know where AI is pulling from to create the language.
So in signing over the copyright, they're exposing us to a huge amount of liability that we didn't sign up for. And not only, like if we can run this stuff through an AI detector, so can anyone who visits our website. So it's exposing us to, a degradation of of trust in us, because you're making it look like we use AI when we don't.
Because we're better than AI, as I said.
Well, yeah. So, there's reputational damages at stake too, which really matters. And then, there's the ethical implications. So for me, this is kind of immediately what I thought of, even though from an actual impact standpoint is probably the least impactful. Although I think it's kind of like the moral under current of AI use, which is like, I want to know if you're using a large language model, if you're using an AI tool, I want to know how you trained it and what you trained it on, because it might be trained on content and on information that you don't have a right to use because it's not yours. And so again, this goes back to what are we paying for? Who are we paying?
Yeah.
Because if you're ripping off someone else, like that is not really cool.
You also came across some information on copywriters.
Yeah.
And this was the one number that really jumped out at me, this $8,000 for website copy. And the information that you found basically said, while AI is impacting the way that copywriters work, it's nuanced.
Right. Because so I found this one Reddit thread where a copywriter is like, this is how I use AI and these are all of my tools. And so she explained it really well. And most importantly, she's training it on her material. And as a copywriter, you would have a lot of material to train it on. And it then understands your writing style and it understands the knowledge base that you're bringing in. And so it can generate content. It can get copy maybe like 80 to 90% of the way there. She's like, it has cut down my copywriting hours from 12 hours for one project all the way down to like 2 or 3, which is tremendous. That's a huge reduction. And this is that thing, right? Like if as a copywriter, you are taking that's yours, you created it, it's trained on you, and then just modifying it as you need to, as you would as a copywriter. That is increasing your output as a professional, reducing your time. Do you need to see a linear reduction in rate? Like, is it like, okay, well, we're going to stick to hourly. So if it only takes me 3 hours, I'm going to only charge this amount. I don't think that it needs to be linear. And the reason is like, there's still some amount of brain power required to modify that. And you can't expect someone to just like take on more and more and more and more work just to make themselves break even using these tools. But there does need to be a reduction in hourly rate. And it's your responsibility, I think, to act in a more an ethical way to reduce the cost to your client in a way that's fair and representative of the work that you're doing with AI. And disclosing your use of AI to that client is like step 1.
Yeah, I think over time, I'm curious to know what is going to happen with the use of AI in things like coding and copy.
Yeah.
Because when somebody is out there and they're saying, okay, website copy is $8,000, and maybe that is the going rate. I don't know. But then there are other copywriters thinking, well, it's taking me 20% of the time to create copy for a website. These people over here are all charging $8,000 still. So I'm going to go ahead and charge $4,000 because it really is only taking me $4,000.
Yeah.
Or what it should only cost $4,000 based on the fact that my hourly rate is significantly lower.
Yeah.
Or no, the amount of time I'm putting in for it is significantly lower.
Yeah.
So I can keep my hourly rate the same or even increasing it by 50% rather than by 100%. All the math makes sense. If you're not listening to the way that I'm explaining it. There are going to be people out there who are taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
And so business owners who don't want to do their own copy or who don't want to understand ChatGPT to create their own copy, which I'm sure a lot of business owners are going to start doing, just like a lot of business owners are probably no longer hiring videographers or people to edit their Instagram videos because AI can do that now. Anyways, it's going to create a completely different demand system.
Well, yeah,
And
the way that it impacts the free market, especially on the sole proprietor, independent creator standpoint, we don't know how that's going to play out. I think that's part of the economic impact discussion, because, is it valuable as a creator to spend less time on sort of the labor of creating so that you have more mental bandwidth to do the sort of creative thinking? And I think there's real value there. And so then the question is, should you be paid for that? And the answer to that is yes, asterisk, as long as you're being honest with what's going on. And this is kind of that thing where, like, are we going to see a system that emerges where the people who can effectively use AI get to live life in a different way than the people who can't effectively use AI because they're simply going to have more free time than people who have to do a bit more labor? And there are also there are jobs that are more labor intensive. So I think the economics and the way that this is going to impact the creative space is yet to be determined, especially as creators and writers figure out how to coexist with it and use it in a productive way. I think we'll talk about maybe the economic impacts in a minute, but I think, to your point, the greatest risk here from a creative standpoint, whether you're creating art, music, written copy, I think there's a real risk to a decline in cognitive performance and the actual thinking side of things. And so I think about it if there's two ways to use AI, and this is really true of any tool. There's, if you were to visualize this as an analogy, there's those people movers, those moving sidewalks in airports. How there are people that get on those and they continue walking, so they just walk faster and they get to where they're going.
I love
faster.
that feeling.
Yeah. But then there are people who get on there and they stand and they let the moving sidewalk do the walking for them. That's kind of how I see AI use in the creative space on the fringes. I think the true creatives won't do that. They may not use it at all. But I think there are people who are so enticed by the reality that AI could potentially do your job for you. And if it can do your job for you, then you have endless free time.
Yeah. I guess if you're using the metaphor of the walking sidewalk, if you put somebody on it and they stand still, that's using AI, but they're still not going as fast as the person who's still walking on the moving sidewalk.
Right. And the person who's walking, you're talking about walking off the moving sidewalk.
Yeah, even on it.
Well, on or
so
off.
Walking, but still on the moving sidewalk. So now you're moving at an exponential rate or double or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you're even just walking beside it, not using AI, not on the moving sidewalk. You're still moving faster than someone just standing on the moving sidewalk,
right.
Which is kind of where we found ourselves at. And again, this is our perspective. We had a short conversation with these people. We had built a case that we just weren't comfortable with ongoing conversation and understanding. So whatever, they might have we can't give you their entire side because it's our side. It's our perspective.
We're not giving as much benefit of the doubt.
No, but this is our perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think the conclusion we came to was kind of they were the type that just kind of stood on the walking sidewalk based on what we were delivered.
Yeah.
And it was causing us to do all this, to basically run. We were on a negative. We were going, their work, what we were getting delivered, whether it was responding to emails, responding to questions like you were getting, it was requiring us to climb an escalator that was going down.
To understand what it was that we were
receiving from them.
Feedback on.
Because the deliverable was crap, because it was AI generated, in our opinion. Largely, plus using a bunch of other tools and research.
Well, yeah, and I think it's just when you are, even if it's not wholly AI generated, there's enough of it in there to make it a length and a volume that it's simply not feasible to ask someone like us to read and understand it and provide feedback in 48 to 72 hours. Like you're asking me to read and understand a 45-page Google document that, is kind of full of fluff. And
Not to mention it's opening us up to liability and reputational damage.
right. And so the impact of, to go back, if someone were just to stand on a moving sidewalk and never walk, you would eventually lose the ability to walk. Like those muscles deteriorate.
Yep.
So there's part of like my actual concern for people is that they're using AI to replace brain power, but brain use is like any other muscle. If you don't use it, it kind of just atrophies. Like your ability to use it in creative ways or in critical ways would decline. And so where does that leave you?
Do you ever find yourself at a grocery store that you can't find something?
Yeah.
And there's this thing that my brain does. It wants to use technology to find it, but I can't because I'm in a grocery store.
Right.
So I either have to ask someone or I have to just keep looking for it. But that's the way we're getting conditioned.
Yeah.
As soon as we can't find something or we don't know something or we can't make sense of something, we just pull our phones up and it's there. Even our photo catalogs, I have 4,000 photos in my catalog. It just came up. I don't know where I saw the number. If I need to find something, I can type it in.
Yeah.
I don't even need to scroll through my photos anymore.
Yeah. And when you start, okay, I mean, a huge rabbit hole to go down here. So much of that is design because if you don't delete your photos because you're like, I can find whatever, I can just search. Now you're buying, what are you buying here? What do you have to buy?
iCloud storage.
You have to buy iCloud storage. And so all of it is like, it's when you understand the economics of it, you're like, oh, it's kind of like cars don't have CD players anymore. Why do you think that is? It's to force you into paying for streaming services. So you don't own your music anymore, but you do pay monthly recurring fees to Spotify and Apple Music and whoever else to listen to music. That feels super intentional to me. Just gonna like throw that out there. So,
but I'm talking about like the brain power.
No, I know.
And that's scary.
100%. And I think we're going to lose a generation of people here to that. I don't think that's going to be a permanent problem, but, I do think that there are going to be people that get kind of chewed up and spit out by this sort of AI boom because they are not being wise with how they're using it in their lives. And it's like a very exaggerated version of using Google Maps to navigate to go anywhere rather than using your brain and learning to identify landmarks and navigate yourself. That's a part of the brain that people don't use anymore.
Yeah. Even the other day I was, and usually when I write, the first thing I do is I try to just open up a Word document blank and start with my thoughts. And the other day I had a revelation. Maybe I'll talk about this next time, but in therapy. And I just brought up a Google Doc and wrote out my thoughts. And then I struggled. So I started a new doc and wrote it out again. And I came up with what I was thinking from my brain. And then it was the next day I put it into chat and just wanted to see what other language would come up and any other resources that might help. But I like the starting point of just using your brain. And I'm trying to hang on to that as much as possible.
I think I've had a similar experience to you that you described earlier, which is I cannot use ChatGPT as a starting point.
No.
It like breaks my thought process.
It takes away from something.
Yeah. It's like it contaminates it.
Yeah.
Or it's like it biases me. And then I'm like, well, I've completely lost what I was even going for. So I don't like
it puts you in a box.
And I think maybe that was why I was a little blind to the AI use with the marketers at first. Cause I do not really use ChatGPT. I use other things, but ChatGPT to like the way that it types and responds and behaves, I don't know. Cause
it's
just
so
like,
predictable and basic once you start and you realize it's actually not that useful.
yeah,
It's kind of wild.
truly. I feel like this should be like a 2-part episode. So we have so much left to talk about. How about this? Well, in this year,
Yes.
and we will do a part 2 coming up next. That'll come out next week, where we kind of talk maybe a bit more about the logistics and sort of like future use of AI
and how we use AI.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean you.
But I think it was important to talk about this because I think everyone has a relationship with AI at this point, whether that relationship, I mean, maybe it's purely avoidant. I don't know. But we'll talk about how we use it so that you understand how we use it and we're transparent with it. And I guess to make a commitment, especially given what we've just talked about previously, is that we'll try to find a way to make sure that we're constantly disclosing if we ever update how it is that we use AI.
Yes.
That feels fair, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great way because people are going to adapt.
Yeah.
the market is going to adapt, the economy on a micro level and a macro level. Everything's going to continue to adapt to it. And so we'll keep you updated.
Awesome. Well, this is a good part 1. Yeah. I love how I was like, this can be a short one. So once again, it is not a short one.
I like it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to part 1. Part 2 will come up next week. And we'd love to hear AI stories if you have any. So drop them in the comments if you're on Spotify or, find us somewhere on the internet because, sharing is caring.